Welcome to the B-Max Sports Podcast.
Angel, we got 30 minutes for the rest of our lives. 30 minutes for the rest of our lives.
Make sure to subscribe on all platforms.
Let's be great. Let's be great.
Hope you enjoy the show.
Good morning, America. It's that time again. Tate and Josh in the morning. What's going on? Josh, how was your day?
Nothing much, buddy. Just piddling around, ready to get back to the real world.
Yeah, you're coming back to work next week, right?
Yes, sir.
I've been at work all week. Sucks getting back in that routine, but it's better than sitting at home, I guess. But anyway, let's get straight into it. We're going to talk about a plethora of things today. First on the list is McGregor's tweets. Do you follow McGregor on Twitter?
I do, but I've been outside in the yard all day. I haven't been on Twitter whatsoever.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. What'd you say?
I said I do, but I've been outside in the yard all day, and I just hadn't had the time to get on Twitter.
All right. Well, McGregor is taking shots at every fucking body, so watch yourselves. First, he started off with Khabib taking shots at him. He was tweeting at Justin Gaethje saying, "You don't want to fight a leg humper." There's no threat. He was saying to fight Khabib, basically calling for the Justin Gaethje fight. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Gaethje's pretty set and determined on winning that title, beating Khabib. And Dana White has gone as far to say today as it's probably going to happen sometime in the summer on Fight Island. So then Conor went on to attack Kamaru Usman. He said in a tweet, after I demolish this 155 division, I'm on to 170. And Kamaru Usman was talking shit to him. It was pretty funny exchange. But one thing I didn't know is Gaethje and Khabib have the same manager. So does Henry Cejudo has the same manager. His name's Ali Abdelaziz or some shit. I can't stand this motherfucker, dude. I really hate him. I don't like him for several reasons because he runs his mouth so much. He always talks shit about fighters. And he used to be a professional fighter. He's actually 1-3 professionally with his one win was by guillotine choke, and then he got submitted 3 times. But he likes to make fun of Conor McGregor for tapping out. Bitch, don't be mad because Conor makes all this money. He went as far nobody needs your fucking 2 cents, buddy. You just stay in the background and mind your fucking business before Conor and his posse slaps you the fuck up. So this guy went on to say that Conor had his chance to fight Gaethje. He chose Cowboy. Let me tell you why I think he chose Cowboy. I think it's a good fight coming back. He wanted to do it at 170. Gaethje doesn't fight 170. Cowboy has been fighting 170. He wanted to have a easier weight cut, I think, coming back after, 2 years out of the octagon. It makes sense, and that's a stylistic matchup that's good for him to come back, and it probably made the most money, honestly, other than the Khabib rematch, which obviously wasn't going to happen his first fight back. So, I think that's why McGregor chose Cowboy. But anyway, this Ali dude just runs his fucking mouth too much. He basically said that Gaethje, he wants these two guys to fight because he's the manager of both of them, and that's going to make him a lot of money. That's obvious. Like, he's a fucking snake. He's a bitch. I think he's a terrorist, honestly. He used to hang out with a terrorist organization. He's some kind of Middle Eastern guy. I really don't like this motherfucker. Then he had the audacity to say, Gaethje and Khabib can be the main event, and Conor can be the fucking undercard. I was like, listen, dude. I don't give a shit who McGregor's fighting. If he's fighting for a belt or not, he's going to be the main event. That's just Conor McGregor. Are you fucking kidding me?
He's never going to be an undercard guy again. I mean, I don't care if he breaks both of his legs, is out for 2 years, and comes back. He's not going to be undercard.
No, this dude's
the biggest name in the UFC at this time. And he might not be I'm not saying he's the best fighter in the UFC. Don't get me wrong. He is one of the best fighters in the UFC, but he's probably not the best fighter in the UFC. But he is the face of the UFC. He has that showmanship that not a lot of these guys have.
Right. I agree with you. I really don't like this guy because I feel like he doesn't really give a fuck about the fighters at all. If you ask me, he got the biggest guys. He's got, like I said, he's got Cejudo, Gaethje, Khabib, and some more guys. He literally just sits there and soaks up their fucking money
So
and runs his mouth behind a Twitter account.
Connor has confirmed that he's going down to 155 for his next fight.
No, he didn't confirm it. He's calling for that fight. He wants to fight Gaethje now, which I don't think it's going to happen. I think Gaethje is pretty set on fighting Khabib, and I don't blame Gaethje.
Yeah, I mean,
I like Gaethje. I don't like his manager. His manager's a fucking dickhole and needs to learn to shut his mouth or somebody smacks the shit out of him.
well, and my thing too is it's just like, I mean, obviously, if Connor went in there and beat Gaethje up, or Gaethje beat Connor up, that's everything to gain for Connor, nothing to gain for Gaethje.
Right. He's
And
still got to
really,
fight for
and
the title.
to me, it's really, I mean, other than being able to say that you beat Justin Gaethje, there's really not that much gain for Connor in the long run.
Right.
I mean, there's no belt involved. Right now, you're looking at Connor came back with his last fight and is just now getting back into the UFC. I can kind of see where he wants to fight because it will it'll put him closer to his 3 to 4 fights this year. His set goal for this year to fight 3 or 4 fights.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could see it, but I mean, Justin Gaethje is one of the baddest dudes in the league right now.
For sure.
So if it reports are true, I saw that Tony Ferguson has a broken orbital bone.
Yeah, he does.
And so does Connor, would it really be smart for him to even take this fight right now? Because if he
he's not fighting again for
if he takes the fight with Gaethje, all that does, if he gets beat up, because he's not going to be able to do Justin Gaethje like he did Cowboy. I just don't believe it's going to happen.
I don't know. I think McGregor hits harder than anybody Gaethje's ever fought in his life.
Well,
and
I agree.
Gaethje's been knocked out in his last 5 fights. Gaethje, or maybe it was last 6 fights, has been knocked out twice by people Connor knocked out in the first round. I think Connor possesses power, and Gaethje, you saw in the Ferguson fight, he swings. I mean, he swings hard. He swings, and Connor's more of a fucking just catch you with angles. I think it'd be a great fight. Now, if Gaethje hits Connor, he's liable to go out. But I think if I was putting money on that fight, just based on right now what I've seen in the Ferguson fight, if Connor can check the leg kicks and work his angles like he always does, I like Connor in that fight. But as far as Khabib goes, I think Justin Gaethje is probably a better fight to beat Khabib than Connor right now, just because he's so well versed. He's a world class wrestler. He don't ever show it, but it's enough to maybe keep the fight standing. His takedown defense is really good, whereas Connor's is probably below Gaethje's level, I would say. Keep the fight standing. That's your best chance to beat Khabib. Just knock that motherfucker out quick.
The only reason I think that would be a good, because I don't know what his planning on that would be. I don't know if it's just because he thinks that if he beats Gaethje, that automatically gives him a shot at the title. So, or I think if he might just be thinking if he does not fight Gaethje, he's going to have to wait longer to get a shot at the title, and that's got to be his only thinking of that.
And he will. Honestly, I think if he were to fight Gaethje and win, the only other matchup to make there in that 155 division is the rematch between Conor and Khabib. But if he were to lose, then that knocks him way on down the rankings, probably out of the top 5. My thing is, right now, it's up to Gaethje. Do you want the belt or do you want the money fight? It's up to you. I mean, if I'm Gaethje, I want to take a crack at the dude that's 28-0 and try to beat it, knock him off. I don't want to risk. That's a risky fight with McGregor because he's got fucking slick power. You've worked your whole life for this. You want a belt. I say take the Khabib fight if I'm Gaethje. Just because if you lose, then you got to work your way all the way to the fuck back up. You're going to have to beat people like Tony Ferguson again, and you're right back where you started before the Ferguson fight. I think this set him up perfectly for a matchup with Khabib, and that's the fight I want to see, honestly. I want to see McGregor fight one more time before he fights somebody like Gaethje or Khabib. I think he needs to stay active, maybe even 2 more fights before he fights Khabib. I want him to get in there and feel comfortable again when he was real active.
Did Tony Ferguson's camp ever come out and explain why Tony didn't go to the ground? Because I haven't seen anything.
No, I don't know why he didn't. Honestly, in the third round, it was either after the. I think it was after the third round. His coach. I was watching Fight Motion, and the UFC Fight Motion takes you in the corners and lets you hear everything the corners are saying. And after the third round, his coach was like, "Hey, we got to switch it up." He was calling for. I can't remember what exactly he called it, but he did try it one time in the fight where he like flipped on his back, tried to grab Gaethje's ankle, tried to like sweep him. He tried it one time, but he was battered at that point, fucking destroyed. You would have liked to seen him try after about the first 2 rounds after he's getting butchered. Try to take it to the ground and see what happens there.
Well, and I noticed that Rogan and DC also made the comment that they didn't understand why he tried that takedown at that time when he was so gassed.
Yeah, it makes no sense. You've got no energy.
I would like to see
bad.
I would like to see what if we're ever going to. I mean, I don't know if we ever will, but just to see what his camp came out and why they made the decisions they did that fight, because I think if Tony Ferguson would have went to the ground, that fight may have gone another way.
Yeah, for sure.
So it'd be interesting to see. I'm hoping that there's going to be a fight companion on JRE pretty soon, because a lot of times Eddie Bravo is sitting in with those guys. So I kind of want to see his opinion coming from the camp and seeing what went wrong that fight.
Yeah, he looked bad. He looked off. I've seen several Ferguson fights. I've never seen him look like that. Like Dana White came out and said he looked slow. His footwork wasn't as crisp as it usually is. He could have had a bad weight cut. Honestly, Tony Ferguson cuts a lot of weight, so does Khabib. And sometimes they don't look as sharp as they normally do. If you have a bad weight cut, that's really taxing on your endurance, on your footwork. You're just exhausted when you get in the octagon.
Well, and you
But
also got to think he's been hovering around 155 for like the past 2-3 weeks,
yeah,
because
and
he did do the stunt where he pulled off and said, "Oh, I was ready. I was at 155, ready for that fight." How much weight do you really think he put back on before he fought Gaethje?
well, considering they pretty much booked that fight right after, he probably was still on a strict diet, so probably didn't put on a bunch of weight. But I know, just looking at his frame and looking at him when he's not in camp, he looks like he walks around at minimum 170. So you're talking about a week up to the fight, you're cutting 15 pounds. And if your body starts, the more you cut weight and the older you get, your body starts retaining water and those weight cuts become harder. So, it's more taxing. It makes your blood thicker, which hurts your kidney function. You're dehydrated for that. You want to be dehydrated as little time as possible. That's why most of them water load like 2 or 3 days before the weigh in, and they eat. They eat clean, of course, and then they flush all that water out. And you want to be dehydrated as little time as possible. It looked like he might have had a tough weight cut, in my opinion, which happens when you get up there in age. And like I said, he probably walks around a little over 170. So he's definitely got the frame for a 155er. He's not a huge 155er like Conor McGregor's a big 155er. Khabib's big and strong for 155. But as you get older, and there's no doubt he's getting on up there, those weight cuts become harder and they become more taxing. So I think that might have played into it. I think he might be getting a little. I don't want to say over the hill, but he's still a great fighter. But with Gaethje on the roll he's on, and the way he's looked in the last couple of fights, I think it was just a bad time for anybody to be fighting Justin Gaethje. He's on a roll. He's looked better than he's ever looked. He looks like a world beater.
And I know there's going to be some really exciting fights in 155 coming up pretty soon, but I'm still on the Conor at 170 train, dude. He looked freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, he did, but he fought. You got to think about it. He fought a guy that is normally a 155er as well, about the same stature. You start looking at these Jorge Masvidals, these Kamaru Usmans, Colby Covington. These guys are a lot bigger than Conor. Probably a lot stronger. I think if he's able to keep it on the feet, he can box with any. He can strike with any of those guys. But I'm just going to use Colby Covington as an example. He's the cardio king at 170. I feel like he can push the pace, and he's going to take you down. He's going to put pressure on you. He's hard to knock out. He took some big shots in that Usman fight. Broke his jaw. He's a warrior. I think Conor would have his hands full once he got up.
What a big just absolute crap talking fight that would be.
Oh,
Connor
dude, that would be
versus
hilarious.
Colby Covington.
Yeah,
You're looking at
I
two dudes
still
who are
want to see.
extremely active on social media.
Yeah, I love it. That would be great for UFC. That fight would sell. I'd buy the shit out of it. I love
I
Colby
just
Covington and Conor McGregor.
I don't know what it is. I really enjoyed seeing Connor looked extremely healthy to me at
He
170.
does. I mean,
He
there's no
looked
doubt.
he looked
He's a
so good.
big 155er. He's one of those tweeners. That's why a lot
Yeah.
of people are calling
Well,
for.
and as I say, I was talking to you about the MMA JRE the other day with Brendan Shaw that uh, what's his name did, Joe Rogan did. They were talking about there's a lot of people pushing for weight classes every 10 pounds.
Yeah, it would make sense because
And
you look at the jumps between, especially 155 and 170. You got a lot of guys that are caught right in between there, like a Conor McGregor. He's a big 55er. He's a small 70. He cuts a lot of. I mean, he probably walks around over probably close. Let's say he weighed in at. He probably walks around about 170 when he's not in camp. Now, of course, when he's in camp, he's slimmer. He's training. He's eating right. He probably is closer to 165.
dude, the fight
But
possibilities it would open up.
dude,
Oh man, that would be awesome.
yeah, because I think Khabib would probably go to 65 because he's missed weight a couple times at 155. He has trouble making that weight, and as he gets older, and the more times he cuts weight, it's just going to get harder for him. And then you got the smaller 170ers like Cowboy, like Anthony Pettis, that could easily make 65 easy. And I think the possibilities are endless there. And then you look at the jump between 185, the middleweight division, and the light heavyweight division. That's 20 pounds. You got a lot of guys that are in between that gap too. So, I mean, for instance, I think John Jones, I think he could probably cut down to 95. I don't think he'd have much problem with that. He'd be fucking unbeatable at 95. Nobody's beating him. Nobody's beating him at light heavyweight either right now. So, but anyway, that's our spiel on the UFC right now in its current state. There's another fight tomorrow night. I'm gonna try to stay up and watch it. I don't know how far I'll get into it. Anthony Smith's fighting Glover Teixeira is the main event. Light is he a light? I think he's a light heavyweight. Yeah, both of them are light heavyweights. I really like Anthony Smith. He's a good fighter. He got butchered by John Jones, but who didn't? He's working his way back up the rankings. That'll be a good fight. And then Saturday, there's some more fights. I haven't really looked at that card yet. So UFC is going to keep us busy. Then NASCAR will be there Sunday. We can watch NASCAR. If you watch that, I do. They're racing at Darlington, so that'll be something to look forward to. But moving on, have you seen the new news about the Ahmaud Arbery case, Hutto, where there's actual surveillance video of him inside the house
I saw you.
on different occasions?
I saw that, and to me, it doesn't change my opinion on whether those two guys should have done what they did. But it does confirm to me that Buddy wasn't just walking around. Like, he wasn't just on a
Right.
run, and he wasn't. I mean, there's some serious question marks in this case now.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's serious question marks in the murder case, because I still think any judge that you take, any jury you take that to, no matter if they're afraid that people are going to judge them for the judgment, or if there's just that much clarity and evidence they have against these two guys, I don't see it going anywhere other than some kind of manslaughter. I mean, I
I'm
don't see
thinking
it
that's
going
what I was going to
anywhere.
say.
I don't see it going anywhere lower than manslaughter. I think it could be first degree manslaughter. I don't think it's going to be a.
It's definitely not going to be murder one. I wouldn't
Yeah,
think
I
so.
don't. I'm with you right there. I don't think it's going to be murder one.
I
And that's
think
the word. That's what I was
I think the
looking for.
best case scenario for the family of Ahmaud Arbery, they get second degree murder, but more likely, this is going to be a fucking wazoo of media and shit. Of course, these guys aren't going to want to go to trial and risk getting life in prison, and the district attorney and the prosecutors aren't going to want to risk letting them get off free. I think we'll probably never see this go to court. If you're getting my opinion, I think they take a plea deal or something. I don't know. These guys seem like the type that might not take a plea deal though. they probably plead to something like manslaughter is what I would think. They probably get 15 years or something like that.
Now, did this change your opinion
N-
of? Yeah, I mean, any kind of did your opinion on this case or situation change after you saw the videos?
Okay, so it did a little. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that they were guilty of murder, no doubt about it. But and I thought they might have been racist, just like they seen a black guy and thought, "Hey, there's been some shit broken into. It's probably this black guy." That leads me to a different motive that they weren't just out to kill a black guy. They weren't just looking for a black guy. That they probably actually did see him go enter a residence. Now he didn't steal anything. I mean, he might have, but according to the video and according to the police reports, he had nothing on him. He didn't steal anything. So I still think you got to let the officers do their job.
Well, and
If you want to follow him,
how much
if
is
you
worth stealing in one of those? I mean,
yeah, there's wood. I
there's
mean, come on,
there's wood stuff laying around. A lot of contractors these
probably some
days,
tools.
unless those doors lock, contractors do not leave their tools out. I mean, they won't do it just because. I mean, they might have done it 20 years ago,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
now you can't. I mean, nowadays, as many people drive around and just go out and just take stuff. There's not many contractors that leave their tools out. They usually have some kind of tool trailer that are locked under padlocks, and I mean
Right. Yeah.
the trailer itself is locked down, so um, they take a lot of precautions. So, like I said, there might not have been much for him to steal in there, but for him, okay, it was one time for him going in there. It was kind of odd because, like I said, I think he's 25, was he not, or 26?
Something like that.
So me and him around the same age. And at this point, I realized that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when I was about 15, 17 ish, it would have been a little bit more normal for me to just be sneaking around. But I mean, at this point, I'm a grown man. And
Right.
if I was building a house and I show up and I had an old lady or I had something like that or had a son with me that was younger and there's a grown man sitting in my unbuilt house, I'm immediately going to go on the offensive because number one, I don't know who this man is. So you got to take stuff like that into consideration where I, as a 25-year-old grown man, am not going to go on other people's property.
Right.
Because there is a risk that you will get buckshot in your ass,
Yep.
especially in the South. You know, I mean, maybe up north or maybe out in California where they have stricter gun laws and stuff like that, it's not going to happen. But I mean, you do live in the South. You do know that along with being the Bible Belt, this is the gun belt. Everybody owns a firearm. Most everybody I know has a firearm in their truck. So,
Yep.
at what point do you have to start firing off on all eight cylinders and thinking, hey, this might not be a good idea?
Yeah. I don't think it was a good idea for him to enter the house. Honestly,
And I mean, not once, but I mean, was it not multiple times?
from the article I read, you get contradicting information from these fucking media outlets. They can't be consistent.
They can't. You're
I've seen
exactly
both.
right. And
I've seen both.
I'm not arguing for the fact to going out and harming this dude.
No,
And
hell no.
I know for a fact that this was not their property.
Right.
If it was their property, this is a whole different circumstance.
Right.
Because I can guarantee you, if I roll up to my house after I get off work, or I go to the grocery store and I roll up into my house, and there's somebody in my backyard, you best believe we're having a conversation, me and him are. And you best believe at the same time, I've got my gun on me. I'm not having a conversation with somebody who's in my backyard knowing good and well they shouldn't be there without my firearm. It's not happening.
Right.
Because number one, you never know what they've got.
Yep.
So I think if it would have been their property, it would have been a completely different scenario. This doesn't really change. Like I said, doesn't change much as far as do I think it was cold-blooded murder? Yeah, I think they murdered him in cold blood. Do I think it's racist now? No, I don't. I think if they would have seen a white dude crawling around there, they would have shot his ass too. That's just me. But like I said, I could be wrong. But I mean, that's just my feelings about it now.
Right. And I tend to agree. I think I'm not 100% sure that they would have handled it the same way with the white guy. They probably would have. But the fact that he
People
was
get
he
tired of
was
getting stolen.
right, he was in a property, and we now have proof of that. I mean, that convinces me that they really did think he was breaking and entering and committing a crime. So not so much that he was just black. That's my take on it. That's the only thing that's changed for me. I still think what they did was wrong. Could have been handled way totally different. Should have been handled totally different.
Yeah, you're exactly
But
right.
that's the only thing that's changed for me is that I don't think they hunted him specifically because he was black. I think they actually did see him enter a residence, and they probably originally thought they were doing the right thing. But you can't hop out on somebody without a badge and hold them at gunpoint and expect them not to fight for their life. They're gonna do. I mean, they're gonna do what they have to do to live. So that's my take on it. The next thing I want to talk about is a tough topic for me because I see both sides of this argument. I was listening to the Big Three Roll Up, my favorite podcast by far. But well, Joe Rogan's starting to creep up there for me, but I've been on this train since like 2016 or 17. I've been listening to this podcast. Basically, this podcast is one fan from Miami, one fan from Florida State, and one fan from University of Florida. They have a podcast together, and they've really grown substantially since I started listening. They were pulling a couple thousand views or a couple thousand streams a month. Now they're huge. These guys are funny. But the Florida fan on there is an African American male, and he's my favorite. That dude's hilarious, and I've met him in person before. He probably doesn't remember me. I met him at the Florida Georgia game in 2016. His name's Uncle Silk anyway. If y'all want to follow him on Twitter with 2Ks. They brought up an issue about NFL black quarterbacks not getting paid, and I tend to see where he's coming from. If you look at, all right, I'm gonna use the Cam Newton instance for now. Cam Newton has been off the field a lot, so I don't think this argument is quite valid for the Cam Newton situation. I think they were saying that Andy Dalton got signed before Cam Newton, and Cam Newton is better than Andy Dalton, which I agree with. But if you look at some of the interviews that some of these sports outlets have done with Cam Newton, he's not looking to be a backup. Andy Dalton immediately accepted a backup role, and I think that's why the Cowboys signed him. If Cam Newton's looking for a backup role and he's willing to sign a backup role, I think the Cowboys go out and sign him way before Andy Dalton. But Cam Newton has been vocal that he doesn't want to sit on the bench. I think that's why Andy Dalton was signed before Cam Newton. I don't think it had anything to do with a race about him, and I respect Cam Newton for being a competitor and wanting to be a starter. I don't know that he will be, but we'll see how that plays out. Then you got the Capper. He brought up Kaepernick. I think the Kaepernick situation is a little different as well. It's just he wanted, in my opinion, when he first got cut or whatever, when they were trying to renegotiate his contract, he wasn't a starter, and the playing time he did get, he wasn't very good. He had a really good year, the year that the 49ers went to the Super Bowl. He did. I'm not denying that, and I think he's still a serviceable quarterback, and I think he could still be in the NFL if he didn't ask for so much money. And then the circus that followed him, it's bad for a locker room. I think that's many reasons why these managers and GMs and coaches don't want to take a shot on him.
Well, and a question I have for you. Obviously, we've seen in the past couple of years where, especially in the NCAA, more offenses are being kind of wrapped around running quarterbacks, or at least extremely mobile quarterbacks.
Yes.
Is the NCAA is evolving and changing extremely quickly at this point.
Right.
We have not seen it happen in the NFL as quickly as it has. Now, may it change in the near future? Yes, it could change. But do you think that a lot of these, because a lot of our black quarterbacks, they are running quarterbacks? Because, I mean, you got to think these guys are, I mean, they're freak athletes. And a lot of these guys can do it all. You have people like Jake Fromm, who is a really good study of defense and can throw well, but the boy can't run.
Fuck no.
But then you've got people like Cam Newton, and he can run his ass off. Or you have people like Johnny Football, who was also a good study of defenses and can run too. So I don't necessarily think it is a racial issue whatsoever. And like I said, I could be wrong. I'm just speaking from my opinion. But I think it's kind of where a program is at. And say you have a program like the Falcons, they're not necessarily wrapped around having a mobile quarterback.
Right.
So why would they pay a backup mobile quarterback who they do not have their offense is not rigged towards a mobile quarterback? Why would they pay him as much as their pro style quarterback?
Right.
If
And
I'm
I
making
agree with you.
any sense. I
No,
mean,
I agree with you. But I will say this. The mobile quarterback, the NFL is starting to change. You've seen that with Lamar Jackson. You've seen it with
no,
Cam Newton. You've seen the success that these teams are starting to have, and it's only a matter of time. These African American quarterbacks will start being the top paid quarterbacks in the league. Mark my words, Lamar Jackson, when his rookie deal's up, somebody's going to pay that man. He's going to be the highest, probably either the highest or second highest paid quarterback in the league. You look at Patrick Mahomes, another mobile quarterback that has a cannon, just like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is really an anomaly, a guy that can really run. I mean, runs like a running back, and then in the past couple of years, you've seen him since he got to the league really start to develop into a good passer too. He can throw on the run, makes good decisions, takes care of the football, puts his team in good positions. And I really think you're going to start seeing it.
well,
And I agree with Silk that you've seen these quarterbacks get past a rookie deal and never get paid the big bucks. And it's unfortunate that happened, but I think the NFL, you're starting to see these younger coaches like what's his name, McVay at the Rams. You're starting to see these younger Cliff Kingsbury with the Cardinals. These younger guys are coming in and taking over, and they're adapting towards what the colleges are running. You get the read option, the RPOs, run pass options, and it's very successful. And I think like Kyler Murray, he's going to get paid big. These guys are about to get their due, and it's only a matter of time. You have to adapt with the system. Everybody knows that. So
well, and like I said, I don't think the NFL has a choice at this point because obviously with the way things are going and then the way technology has advanced within the past 10 years, these dudes can publicly voice themselves in front of millions of people.
yeah,
Now, whether them having some kind of leverage over the owners and the managers by just shouting out on Twitter, hey, I don't think I make enough money. Will it work? I doubt it. I mean, I don't think a couple 100,000, maybe even a lot less than that, people on Twitter complain about their favorite QB not making as much money is going to change much. But I do think at this point, it kind of holds people to like a what's the word? Holds them in check towards
right,
so people can point out injustices, and the fans do now have a voice in what goes on within the management of a company. Because I mean, you look at ESPN all the time is pulling up tweets from fans over and over and over and over,
yeah,
and they're showing it all the time. So I think things like that is going to actually help these guys get paid a little bit more. Um,
right,
and it's going to be really interesting. Like I said, especially with NCAA coming so quickly, and a lot of guys are evolving. A lot of teams are evolving around mobile quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see what the NFL does, especially when you have just massive, massive guys who, I mean, are on the other side of the football, waiting. Guys who are 330 pounds that run a 4.5 or a 4.6, and they're just ready to eat a running quarterback alive. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it evolves in the NFL since it's so quickly evolving in the NCAA.
right. And if I want to point to the NFL draft this year, if you take a look at a number of the top quarterbacks taken this year, they're dual threats. You look at Tua. Tua can run a little bit. Jalen Hurts can run. Jordan Love can run. I mean, several of these guys are dual threats, and they're coming in. If they come into a good situation and a good offense, I think they're going to be good, very successful. And if they can stay healthy long enough to see that second contract, they're going to get paid too. Like I said with Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, these guys are going to get paid. Cam Newton did get paid. He won an MVP, rightfully so. He got paid. But then Silk brought up another point that I thought was very interesting that I had never really thought about before. NFL running backs hardly ever get their due diligence, I feel like. And I think Silk didn't. I mean, he pointed out some great points, and I agreed with most of them. The reason these running backs don't get paid the big bucks is if you look at their career, like the average lifespan of a quarter or a running back's like
3 to 4
seasons.
years.
Yeah, I think that's why teams are afraid to make that big investment. But when you get a special running back, these guys are getting paid. You look at Christian McCaffrey just got paid. Ezekiel Elliott just got paid. Saquon's gonna get paid. But he's a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and he's upset that his team isn't paying Leonard Fournette, and I could see his issues with that. I mean, they didn't really take anybody in the draft. I don't know who they have in their as far as depth in their backfield. I don't pay attention to the NFL too much, except for my fantasy team and the Cowboys. But somebody's going to pay him. I can tell you that. Leonard Fournette's a serviceable running back and big physical kid that will run your ass over and then run by you.
Well, and
somebody's going to pay him.
Go ahead.
He did have some injury issues, so I think that's why Jacksonville was hesitant to give him the big deal because he haven't proved he could stay on the field.
I can see their point where, yes, these guys are extremely talented, and these guys are, making big money for the teams. But at some point, we also have to look at it from a business standpoint because these teams are businesses. So you have to look at it at a standpoint where you're like, okay, this guy, he's going to give us results for maybe 3 to 4 years, maybe a little bit longer if he stays healthy. So I don't think it's like an injustice. I don't think they're saying, oh, let's just screw the running backs out of their money. I just think it's where they sit down and say, okay, this is what this guy's worth to us.
Yeah.
It's just like any other business that you sit down, you make inventory on what you have, and you say, okay, this is what this inventory is worth. So I don't think they're trying to screw them out of any kind of money. If they were worth the money, they're going to give it to them.
I think so too. And you've seen it, and you've seen it here recently. You've seen them starting to get paid. Like I said, if Saquon can stay healthy this year, I think they'll have the option to renew his contract or redo his contract this year. They're going to get it done because that's who their offense revolves around. And New York, it's definitely not Daniel Jones. I mean, Daniel Jones has done a decent job coming out of Duke, but that's not really. I don't think that's their long-term look at quarterback, in my opinion. But they do have somebody that they could build an offense around as Saquon Barkley. So I think he's going to get paid. You're going to start seeing these running backs getting paid. Derrick Henry's another one that's fitting to get paid. It might not be by the Titans, but somebody's fitting to pay Derrick Henry. That man is a monster. So I think it's all going to come full circle. Like I said, I think the running backs are starting to evolve with the quarterbacks. A lot of them are catching the ball out the backfield more. Like you look at Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, those type of running backs are really putting up good stats because they're a threat on every down. So anyway, next thing we're going to talk about is Dominic Cruz. This is interesting. Dominic Cruz publicly says in an interview, Henry Cejudo is retiring because he wants more money, but Dana doesn't give a shit. I think Dana would be doing a severe injustice if he doesn't pay Cejudo what his other stars are making, because this dude's a star, in my opinion. Anyway, he's an exciting fighter. He finishes most of his fights. I think he's had a couple decisions, but most of the time he's going out there trying to finish the fight. If he wants more money, I say give it to him. But I know how Dana White is. Dana White's going to pay you what he thinks you should make and not a cent more. And I understand it from a business aspect too. But I really hope Henry Cejudo is not done in the UFC. But what Dominic Cruz says is basically what I had suspicions about after he retired. I think it was about money. And unfortunately, Henry Cejudo's got the same dipshit manager as Khabib and Justin Gaethje, and I really do not like this fucker. So I think it has a lot to do with Ali's in his ear telling him, hey, retire. You're going to force Dana White's hand. And I think he might be fucking himself out of one of the best careers in MMA history. So hopefully we see Cejudo back in the octagon, and hopefully it's not too long because he didn't take very much damage at all in that Cruz fight. So I would like to see him fight again for the end of the year. Don't know if we're going to see that, though. So anyway, and the last thing we've got two more things, actually. So from what I've seen on Twitter, the Pac-12 is saying that they're not going to start on time. But I've seen other conferences, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, ACC, all saying they're going to try to start on time. They're preparing for the season to start on time. So what does that mean? It means just like every other year. Football without Pac-12. Them fuckers aren't making the playoff. None of those teams are playoff teams, in my opinion. Oregon's losing their star quarterback. They were the closest to getting there. What's another team? I can't even think of another team that's even close to making the playoff.
USC, Washington,
No, fuck no. Washington's not either.
Stanford, California Golden Bears, Washington State Cougars, UCLA.
No. Yeah, none of those teams are even close to making the playoff, in my opinion. So that really means nothing to me. I don't watch the Pac-12 anyway. They come on too late at night. Now, some of their bigger matchups, like when Oregon played Auburn at the beginning of the year last year, I was tuned in. That was a good game. The Pac-12 made a statement, said they could play with the SEC. I mean, that was a good game. Oregon, honestly, probably should have won that game. But they didn't. So, and if they lose the game, they're pretty much out the playoff because of their streak in the schedule. But what does it mean for SEC fans? If you have a Pac-12 team scheduled, for instance, Bama is supposed to play USC this year. That game's not going to happen. So Bama's already exploring other options to find somebody to play, make sure they get their 12 games. I think it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds.
What do you think the move is there? Because I mean, I don't see it being worth anything to me. If the NCAA is willing to let everybody play games, and at this point, in the state of Georgia, we've reopened, and within the last week, we've seen the fewer numbers of new COVID cases and fewer people on ventilators. So obviously, it was not. I mean, it was obviously a tough decision to open back up, but I mean, we're trending in the right direction, I feel like. So why would they even make this decision? I mean, if everybody else says, okay, hey, we're ready to roll, we're ready to rock, we're having football, I don't see where it benefits them whatsoever.
It's not going to benefit them at all. What's going to end up happening is if they do decide not to start on time, all the other teams are going to start on time. Is pretty much what I've come to conclusion. There'll be no fans in the stands, of course, but there'll be no games played in California, is what their governor's saying. And there's 3 or 4 teams from the Pac-12 in that state. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to start on time. All the other Power 4 conferences are going to start on time. They're going to play. We'll have our playoff. I think they're looking to start late December, early January. Our season's almost going to be over.
Well,
so they're going to play in play for their conference championship, and then one of them will end up winning their conference, being a 1 or 2 loss team, and claim the national championship. And we'll all laugh at them. That's what I think is going to happen.
I don't want to go ahead and make a really big prediction, but I think there's been a lot of uproar against California Governor Newsom. So I don't think we need to go ahead and put all of our eggs in the basket and say that this is going to be what's going to happen.
I don't know. There's still too much time.
Within the next couple months, I think we're about to see a lot of change because Governor Newsom has absolutely screwed himself in so many ways. I mean, you have Democrats who once loved the man. I mean, absolutely loved him because Governor Newsom is a Democrat through and through, a liberal through and through. And they're turning against him on the decisions that he's making.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who really support him, a lot of people who are prominent liberals, who are prominent Democrats, are not supporting this guy anymore. So just keep an eye out to see and watch how this plays out, because I don't think what we're seeing now is going to be what we're going to see come September. I
agree
don't
too.
think it's going to happen.
I think they'll be doing themselves a disservice if they don't play the football season. But that's me. They're going to miss out on revenue. It's going to hurt their economy. It is what it is, though. If that's what they want to do, I have no problem with it because it'll be just like every other year. The Pac-12 wasn't going to make the playoff anyway. They're going to play those boring games that nobody fucking watches. I'm sorry if you're a fan of a Pac-12 team. Really, the only argument I'll even listen to is Oregon. I mean, they've been decent for a while, for the last decade or so. The rest of the teams are so sporadic, and none of them are ever world beaters. They're not beating the Clemsons, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgia. They're not beating those guys on a regular basis. So I'm not concerned with them playing or not. I really don't give a damn if they do because I'm not going to watch them either way. So as long as the Florida Gators are playing, the SEC's playing, and a couple other schools that I tend to watch. I tend to watch Clemson some, Ohio State some. I just like to see what everybody's got. So as long as they're playing, I really don't give a shit what the Pac-12 does. I don't care if they drop out and become Division II. I really don't. They can. I don't care. All right, the last thing we've got on our list today is let's talk about Francis Ngannou. I read an article today, or no, I didn't read an article. I watched an interview on YouTube with Francis Ngannou, and he's really frustrated with his lack of a title shot, and I don't blame him. Stipe's been out for a while. He's not active. And what did they do when Conor McGregor wasn't active, when he wasn't fighting, when he was going to try to do a boxing match? They stripped him of the title, stripped Stipe's bitch ass, either tell him to fucking shit or get off the pot. You've been holding up this heavyweight division for a year, and now when he comes back, they want to give the shot to DC. That's bullshit. Francis Ngannou's been sitting and waiting, and I think he's ready. I think he's the best heavyweight in the division.
I think
he deserves that title shot.
He's got some kind of eye issue. And, of course, you look at some of his last couple fights, Stipe did get poked in the eye multiple times, like unreal.
Right.
So, I was listening to another podcast talking about it, and they said exactly what you said. Like, either you need to, you've had a long time to recover from this.
Right.
And I know that I can understand where he's coming from. He doesn't want to stress it because right now, he only got one good eye.
Right, then just give up your title, quit holding up the fucking division.
I think Stipe is good enough that if he did need to take another year and a half off to let his eye recover, you should let him get a big fight when he comes back just because.
Yeah, let him fight for the title.
Yeah, let him fight for the title when he gets back. That's fine. But, you look at Francis Ngannou, dude, I don't see anybody beating this guy.
No, and I think the most plausible matchup right now would be with Stipe out, and I don't see him coming back this year at all. By December, I don't see it.
If Stipe retires, DC's gone. So
I think so too. I don't think, but I think if Stipe's still waiting around, which I don't think Stipe's going to retire. I think he's going to fight. I think it'll be 2021 before he fights. So, in my opinion, this is what Dana White should do. Dana White should say, fuck the interim belts. We're not doing interim belts in this division because it's going to be another year before we get an actual unification bout. What I would do is take that belt from Stipe, say, look, hate to do this to you. It's not your fault, but it's also not these other guys' faults who are in their prime right now that have been active and knocking motherfuckers out trying to get this title. As soon as you're ready to come back, your first fight back will be for the title. You'll get to fight for your title. So it'll be kind of like he never lost it. He won't have to fight up and try to climb back to the top to get his title. But I think right now, if DC wants to fight for the title, which I don't think he wants to fight Francis Ngannou by any fucking means. I don't think anybody does.
I don't think he won't. I think, and this is popular opinion, that if Stipe does not come out in the next couple of years or within the next year and a half, DC, obviously his announcing career is going to just keep going up.
Yeah, he's a great commentator, man.
Especially the way that him and Rogan vibe together. And
I love it.
I really don't see DC hanging around much longer.
Won't surprise me a bit.
He proved, and now that he has a different chapter waiting for the page to be turned on, I just don't see him risking it to fight Ngannou or something ridiculous.
Yeah, let me look up these UFC heavyweight rankings real quick. Let's see. We have, where the fuck is the heavyweights?
And I don't see.
Okay, right here.
I don't see Stipe beating Francis right now. I don't.
Fuck, I don't see anybody beating Francis.
With all the time out that Stipe has had, and then you're looking at Francis just absolutely murking dudes.
Yeah. Hold on, let me look up let me do some research real quick. I should have already done this, but I'm gonna do it right now. Bear with me. All right, so another dude that's been on a roll is Curtis Blades. Has been on a roll, and he's a terrific fighter. He did lose to Ngannou earlier, about 4 or 5 fights ago, so probably a couple years ago. But he's the third ranked guy behind Steve A and Daniel Cormier. shit, let them go at it for the title. If Cormier don't want to fight him, which I agree with you, I don't think he does. But I think Ngannou's way overdue. I think let's look at his record real quick. The dude, I mean, he did lose to Stipe early in his career, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. Hold on, let me look it up before I tell you guys something wrong. But even if he did lose to him, he's still overdue. I mean, he's been on a tear. He was still young early in his career when he fought Stipe, I believe. Hold on. Oh shit!
I definitely think that we want to see the trilogy going on with Stipe and Cormier. Everybody wants to see it. What's interesting is that Stipe has a win with Ngannou, but I feel like we've seen a brand new man coming out. You know what I'm saying?
Oh hell yeah, yeah.
I feel like
he's on a 3-4 fight winning streak. All of them knockouts. The longest one took 1 minute and 11 seconds. He did lose back to back. He lost to Stipe in a decision and Derek Lewis in a decision. One being 3 rounds, one being 5 rounds was Stipe for the title. So I think he's due for a title shot. He's actually beat Curtis Blades twice. So
and
maybe not a trilogy there. He knocked him out both times. So maybe not a trilogy. There's other interesting matchups in that heavyweight division, but let's see who's fighting coming up. You've got, the heavyweight division doesn't really have a lot of star power in it right now. I mean, you got Oleinik, who just knocked out Verdum. I don't think he's ready for a title shot. Maybe Alexander Volkov. Maybe him. Derek Lewis, maybe. He's actually, Ngannou lost to him, so maybe a rematch with him for the title. That'd be interesting. But, it's time for this heavyweight division to move on. It's been held up too long, and I don't think it's close to being... I don't think Stipe's close to coming back, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like I said, I
don't blame him.
I think Francis. I think this dude has turned. I don't know what he's hit, but he's hit the turbochargers because Rosenstruck is not just some wash up.
Fuck no,
dude, that's one of the most talented strikers in the heavyweight division right now.
Oh yeah.
And he goes in there and pieces him up in 20 seconds.
Yep.
I think, Rosenstruck, don't count the dude out because, he still is.
He'll be fine. He's young.
Top 5. He, like you said, he's a young guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say young in age, but he
has UFC wise.
How old is he? He is 32, so actually he's not too old. Yeah, but he's only had 11 pro fights.
Still within his. Like I said, he's young, kind of young in the UFC compared to some of these other guys. 32 is not bad. I could see him coming and trying to get another fight with Francis. Obviously, that's not going to happen unless Francis loses some kind of. If he loses a title fight, I don't think that Rosenstruck will have another chance at him.
If he goes on a run or something, wins 3 or 4 fights in a row, then I think he'd probably get another shot. But other than that, it would take Ngannou losing.
But
anyway, that's all we've got for today, guys. We didn't quite make an hour today, but I had a great time talking about UFC. That's one of my more favorite sports. I love watching it. Unarmed combat is one of a kind. It's 2 guys in a ring trying to knock each other's head off.
Well,
no help from a team.
Only sports we have to talk about these days.
Yeah, well, I'll be able to talk about NASCAR after this weekend, so y'all be watching out, watch them turn left. But anyway, it's been good, guys. Like always, make sure you subscribe on all platforms, share, tell a friend. We're trying to grow this thing. Might even come out with some shirts with our faces on it. If we hit a few milestones, who knows? But anyway, it's been your boy, Tate and Josh. Peace.
Thanks for tuning into the B-Max Sports Podcast.
40, 1, Lindsay, 25, 20, 50, 10, 5, Lindsay, stop.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Listen, my whole family loves it, man.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
We'll see you next week.
Go rock this thing, huh? Love you, man. Let's go get it.